In this video, we want to encapsulate the ideas and concepts that we have learned in this section. This to make it easier for you to skim through them at the last time revision before taking your exam. Because most agile projects aim to create intangible products that are continuously elaborated and refined throughout the project and that are rarely repeated from one project to another, agile projects imply high levels of complexity and uncertainty, making it almost impossible to define project requirements upfront, and therefore the traditional estimation method won't function in this environment. To address the high uncertainty level in an agile project, estimation is provided using a top-down approach, where the project team uses the current available information about the project to produce a rough estimation that's less accurate and less detailed. Then, when more information becomes available as the project progresses and as the team knows more about the requirements, the project team refine their plans until they reach the detailed estimation on each task on just-in-time basis. The estimation is provided in ranges, and the wider the range, the less confident in the accuracy of the estimation, and vice versa. And of course, the estimation ranges get narrower and narrower as the project progresses. It's the project team's responsibility to estimate the effort needed to finish the work and to make decisions concerning how the work will be achieved and what amount of work can be done on a certain time frame. And also, Agile came up with the concept of relative sizing and estimation. This to overcome the problems that arise with estimation, like putting experience level as a factor while estimating or adding risk mitigation efforts to the estimate. To simplify the relative prioritization, you can't give an exact definition for the size of orange when you are asked to. However, you can define the orange size as greater than a grape but smaller than a watermelon. Simply, this is the relative sizing, by which we compare the feature's size to a previously known piece of work. Agile estimation is objective, which means we focus on the item itself to be estimated rather than using the subjective estimation that focuses on the time, money, or effort you need to develop the item. To overcome the issues with subjective estimation, Agile came up with the idea of estimating using a generic unit that's called story points. And the story point is an abstract measure of the difficulty level required to implement a feature. The idea of relative estimation relies on estimating items in comparison to each other. The benefit of relative estimation is that we are building our estimate on a previously done piece of work, rather than an absolute estimates. And this allows us to estimate the work size away from people's productivity or skills level. If we want to apply the relative estimation to estimate the first task when there are no tasks to compare to provide the estimation, then in this case we choose a well-known task to everyone, and then to give this task a unit size, like 1 for example. Then all the coming estimates will be based on comparing the size of a new item to the size of that base or neutral task that we have all agreed upon. And then we have said that relative estimation is the basis of various agile estimation techniques like the t-shirt sizing. T-shirt sizing gains its name from the t-shirt sizing, the X small, small, medium large, and X large, and so on. This estimation technique gives the team the freedom to think in a more abstract way about the effort involved in a story. In addition, it's also getting the team out of their analytical thought process and into a more flexible mindset. However, there are some issues when using the t-shirt sizing technique. One of them is that it's less granular than the numerical measurements, leading to the reduction of the accuracy of the estimates. One other drawback is that it's more complicated to compare stories to each other using this technique. That's why the t-shirt sizing is used to capture the initial estimation of features. This at the early stages of the project, as it's a rough estimation that needs to be refined and modified throughout the project life cycle. Then the Wideband Delphi technique, that is a consensus-based estimation technique where the project estimates are created using collaboration between the meeting participants with the aid of a facilitator. And the keyword in using the Wideband Delphi is anonymous, where each one of the participants submits his or her estimates anonymously. This anonymity is to overcome the cognitive bias that may result if the participants know which estimation belongs to who. And this because people usually gather around ideas of experts or bosses rather than examining and judging ideas for their own. In the Delphi technique, each one of the participants work alone to come up with the first round estimation. Then the facilitator collects the estimates and plots them on a graph. The estimates are kept anonymous and no one knows which estimate belongs to whom. The participants start to discuss the estimates that vary widely. Then the estimation round is repeated and after several rounds, consensus start to emerge, and variations start to be narrower. The estimation process is complete when each of the estimates become within the range that was defined at the beginning of the meeting. Then we have discussed the planning poker technique, which is somehow similar to the Wideband Delphi, which is a technique aims to minimize the influence between participants and gives everyone a chance to speak up their ideas. In the planning poker, at the beginning of the meeting, the participants set a common scale to be used in the estimation rounds to ensure that everyone has a common understanding of the units used. Then each participant receives a number of cards representing the unit size, for example 1, 3, 5, 8, and so on. Then the user story is discussed to ensure that everyone is on the same page. Then each one provides their estimation and people with very high and very low estimates are asked to justify their estimations. Then the process is repeated over and over until consensus is reached among all. Planning poker is a game and may be considered as a team-building activity. Then the affinity estimation. The affinity estimation is not exactly an estimation technique, but rather it's a technique that's used to group similar user stories in size together to ensure that all estimates are consistent. Then we have the concept of the ideal time. The ideal time is the time needed to complete a given task as if there are no interruptions, like sick days for employees, people working more than one task, and any other things that took the time assigned for the item. This technique assumes that in 8 hours workday, all the 8 hours are available for work, and all other distractions and non-project work are eliminated. One of the major advantages of using the ideal time estimation technique is that it's simple and easy to use, yet it can be easily understood by and explained to all stakeholders. However, the main drawback is that the measure of ideal time varies from one person to another based on their own skills and competencies. And then to consolidate your understanding, we have compared between the story points and ideal time as two different estimation techniques, and we have stated the advantages and the disadvantages of each of them. Also, we have said that it's up to you to choose the estimation unit that suits you and fit for the circumstances of your project. Very important considerations when estimating user stories that our estimates need to include all the known activities required to complete the stories, like testing, time, and compliance work. Second, the size of all story points should be consistent. For example, a 2-point story should be double in size the 1-point story. The third consideration is that the team is the one who has the responsibility for creating the unit base for estimation. The fourth point to consider is to take care of practices that may lead to a false sense of accuracy, like taking the average of estimates. The last point is the estimates should include all other required work, like risk mitigation actions. And now we have reached the end of this section. If you have any questions, just post it on the Q&A forum. And remember that everything we teach in this course is for the sake of being agile, not just to do some practices of agile. Being agile means that agile became a second nature for you. So it's a long way to go, but keep on following the course and thinking of practicing agile concepts. See you at the next section.